2024 Indian Springfield Darkhorse, the last cruiser from Indian's lineup that I haven't ridden yet. How does this thing stack up against the fairing bikes? Is it lighter? Is it faster? Is it easier to handle? And oh yeah, stick around to the end of the video where I tell you how this thing compares to the Chieftain and the Challenger as a daily bagger for a single bike garage. Actually, today we're gonna do it a little bit differently. I'm gonna give you some basic specs ahead of time before we go out and ride, and I give you my initial thoughts on what I thought when I first got on this bike. This Springfield is a fairingless bagger with the 116 Thunderstroke when it's a Darkhorse. If it's a classic, then it's a 111. This 116 puts out 80 horsepower and about 120 foot-pounds of torque. And the bike weighs this much right here. Yeah, it's a heavy bike. But strangely enough, that weighs more than a Chieftain. It weighs more than a Challenger. Does it ride any different? Does it ride better? What's the difference in the actual ride quality when the bike with less stuff has a little bit more weight? Now, my initial thoughts.
We might lose this camera a little bit because these bars are a little shaky. First impressions, first 30 seconds as we take it around here through this neighborhood for some slower speed stuff. Immediately, the first thing that I notice when I get on this bike is everything feels large. Obviously, it's a bagger, but it's the smallest bagger in the sense that it doesn't have a fairing. It's the entry-level bagger. It's the lowest cost. It has the least tech, but strangely enough, it feels bagger big. The bars are exactly where you would expect them to be on a bagger. My legs are spread apart. My feet are forward. To reach that rear brake, I have to like stick my leg up, and I'm 5'10". I can reach it, but you know, you got to move your feet to actually get there. So it has full bagger size. It just doesn't have the fairing right here in front. So it's very interesting. It's exactly what you would expect on a Chieftain for the most part without the actual fairing. As far as actual slow speed handling, this bike doesn't feel like it has the weight that it has. I think it's 797 pounds, almost 800 pounds, and this thing putts around not like a sport bike, but definitely like a smaller cruiser. So I learned this earlier today, actually just a couple minutes ago. The difference between the Springfield and the Chieftain is the rake. So this bike has a little bit shorter rake than the Chieftain does. The bikes with the fairings have a little bit longer rake to make room for all that extra, you know, technology that it has in the fairing. And this bike darts around a little bit lighter than the Chieftain. The Chieftain is light, but this thing back and forth pretty smoothly. It has solid inputs. The seat holds me in place. There's a nice little cushion spot on the seat. It keeps me right in place. I don't move around. All of the inputs are nice and hefty like I like on the Indian bikes, and by hefty I mean it's firm, right? It's a solid pull. It has decent weight to it. Same thing with the clutch lever and brake lever, and the same thing with the foot lever. Shifter gives you a nice confirming kadoosh when you go into the next gear. Hopefully you can hear it. Maybe not, I don't know. But nice, smooth, balanced over the slow speed stuff.
So here's how it sits. Very comfortable. Arms are pretty much straight out, literally directly in front of me, shoulder to wrist. Nice comfortable seat. That thing right there holds you in place. You do not move around, and you need it because this bike is torquey. But how does it handle on the open road? How does it handle at moderate traffic cruising?
This thing has some get up right there in the mid-range coming out of that neighborhood. Oh man. All right, so cruising here, nice and easy. 4th gear, 5th gear, through some little back roads, nice little bend. The little bit of initial vibration that you get when you're starting to accelerate 2,000 RPMs-ish, 1st and 2nd gear, that smooths out. Right here, 55, 6th gear, I get a little tiny rumble in the bars, nothing outrageous. I don't feel anything in the seat, I don't feel anything in my feet. So cruising here, the bike is actually very smooth. It does have cruise control. Push in and then set, and we are locked in. Cruise control is engaged. That person wants to get run over. 100% they do. I know they do. So now that that's over with, set, cruise, lock it in. Cruise control is engaged. Smooth, stable, planted. And right here, I'm getting a clean gust of air through the front. I personally feel, obviously, all the wind. This is pretty high up. It's like, you know, it's blocking my legs, I guess. so my legs don't feel very much wind, but everything else has a clean gust of air. It's not turbulent wind because there's nothing kind of disturbing it. So it's basically wide open, especially if you put like a windscreen on these. So these guys don't have fairings, but there's awesome screens that you can get for it. It'll definitely block all of it. But as it sits right here, wind is pretty good. We're going 45 miles an hour. Beautiful 75-degree day. It's going to be 80 a little bit. This is like the perfect riding weather. And it feels good. Woo! Woo! Oh yeah, man, this thing darts.
Did I mention that this thing is a 116 cubic inch Thunderstroke with 120 foot-pounds of torque, and it feels like this.
Now, let's talk about this engine. This is a 116 cubic inch Thunderstroke, the big boy. The Springfield standard comes with the 111. The Darkhorse comes with the 116. This engine has crazy low down torque. A little bit of throttle does a lot when you're at the lower RPMs, 1500, 2000 RPMs. It kind of just like takes off. You get a little bit of a bop, 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 and you kind of just go, and you can feel that little bit of low end vibration. It's really just on takeoff. When you're riding, you don't feel it that much, but it has a low down grunt and it kind of just takes off. The bike seems to accelerate effortlessly for the size that it is. It really doesn't seem like it's struggling, and it's because this damn thing has 120 foot-pounds of torque, man. This bike is a beast. Right here's where we talk about tech, but check this out instead.
Up front, there is no actual storage or touring comfort. Obviously, there is no fairing here, but as far as technology is concerned, we have the traditional analog dash. In here, you have your front rear tire pressure, you have ride modes, you have a fuel gauge, which is actually kind of funny because it has a fuel gauge right there, but it also has a fuel gauge right here. And then your locks for the bags. These are locking bags, currently locked. You can unlock them also remotely from the key fob. As far as finger inputs, you have your horn, high, low, turn signals, very basic here. And then you have a cycle switch on the backside for trip information. On the other side, we have cycle on the ignition, start, stop, cruise control, and the other button right here to cycle through the main menu. The Darkhorse comes with 2x4 piston calipers, 2 rotors on the front. This thing has very good stopping power and good lever feel. The lever has a tiny bit of play at the front end where it's a little bit of squish. Could be because of the pad material, more than likely because of the pad material. But it's a firm press and it stops the bike very well. I don't think that this bike needs any more brakes. And the rear brakes on this thing, which I thoroughly enjoy using rear brakes, are solid. Now, this thing being a bagger, it needs to have long haul comfort. So check these bags out. Look at that. Plenty of space for pretty much everything you need. I mean, it's literally the entire back half of a Chieftain. Just to kind of put this into perspective, there's a size 10 boot right there. On these, you can actually get the accommodations to put a tour pack right here. These little strips are actually removable. Let me see how close I can get, see if you can see them. These little strips right here are actually removable, and you can put a tour pack on it if you want to.
Second gear, power, let's send it. Oh, dude, this thing's moving. Dude, this is freaking faster than the Sprint. This is faster than the Chieftain, for real. Oh man, this thing feels faster than the Chieftain. I don't know why. This thing seems to have a little bit more get up right there in that like 3rd, 4th gear area. I have no idea why, but right around 3rd gear, 4th gear, this thing kind of picked it up a little bit, and I feel like it carried slightly more than the Chieftain. But either way, here cruising at speed, 60 miles an hour, 6th gear. The bike is easy to handle. I can rock back and forth just like this. I can toss it around, honestly, like a smaller bike. That little bit of rake makes it really darty on the front end, and it's really easy to handle back and forth, obviously given, you know, the size of the bike. It's not going to be as flickable as the Scout, but for the fact that this is a big bike, man, that is actually pretty impressive. Yeah, rolling through the gears is pretty fun, man. Just a couple RPMs and you can you can send it. This bike is big and I am having way too much fun kind of flowing through traffic. Yeah.
So how does this thing compare to the other baggers? In reality, it is up to personal preference whether you want that fairing or not. From the tank back, it is essentially the same bike as the Chieftain. So power delivery, ergonomics, feel, bar position, bag position is all pretty much the same. Are you the type of rider that prefers the entertainment system, that prefers the navigation, or do you want a bare bones bagger where you're getting the size, you're getting the power, you're getting the frame, you're getting the brakes, but you don't really care for the electronics. You just want to ride. You don't care for the windscreen. You want the wind in your face, in your hair. You should be wearing a helmet, but I get it. That's what this bike is for. So it fits perfectly nice. A benefit that this bike has is, strangely enough, I actually learned this today, the rake on this bike is actually a little bit shorter, so it's a little bit more darty back and forth, and you can kind of feel it, and I did make a comment about it while I was out riding. So essentially, it's a stripped down version of the bagger without the tech. So if you're somebody that doesn't want really the tech, the only real tech that this thing has, cruise control, ABS, traction control, locking bags, and that's about it. And most of those are all just safety features that are kind of required nowadays. So yeah, stripped down bagger without a windscreen, no tech, limited tech. Just get out and ride.
All right, power, full send, second gear. Let's see what this thing's got. Oh, dude, this thing's pulling harder than I thought. Holy shit, let's go. That's a lot of wind. The camera's gone. The camera's gone. That's a lot of wind. Oh man, let's turn this around. Can you guys see me? Oh, the camera's gone. All right, so it has enough juice to turn the camera around. That is hilarious. Honestly, this bike carries a lot more in the mid-range than I expected. When it comes to the actual power, third gear, fourth gear, I said it earlier, but I'm gonna say it again. Third gear, fourth gear has a little carry. That mid-range right there between 40 to 70 miles an hour, this bike is happy and it is pulling strong. Obviously 80, 90 miles an hour, it starts to die off because it's not a high horsepower bike. These big twins don't go very well on the high speed, but from low speed all the way up to about 80, man, it's pulling like a freight train. So honestly, good power band, exactly what you would expect out of the big honking twins. And it gives good power, honestly. The mid-range is perfectly fine. I 100% respect the power on this bike. Do I wish I had more? Always. Always wish it had more. More power on everything. But overall, solid bike.
I think this is the perfect time to stop the video and say, subscribe.
So final thoughts on the Indian Springfield Darkhorse. This bike makes perfect sense. The inputs are nice and easy for the size of the bike. Everything kind of goes along with the weight. It's stable, it's planted, the clutch, the brakes, all the levers, all the inputs feel stable along with the rest of the motorcycle. It feels like a complete package. Having these bags back here, having no windscreen is a little bit of a takeaway from me because personally, a big bagger, I would like to be a little bit more comfortable than having the wind on me. But again, 100%, that is a personal preference. I know that having a windscreen is an option that you can add to it, and I think that it would definitely complete the package. The front end is light, it's easy to input back and forth. Strangely enough, this bike is fun to flick around and get to the side of the tire. It's actually really easy to do. Just a little bit of tug or push in either direction, and the bike flicks very easily. I think it is a solid bagger if you are looking for a big bike with heft that is stripped down and bare bones. And the reason I say that is because this bike doesn't have any of the entertainment aspects of the other baggers. It doesn't have the navigation, doesn't have the GPS, doesn't have any of the radio commodities, any of that stuff. It is literally a stripped down bagger. And that's perfectly fine because that's exactly what this bike is supposed to be.
Thank you guys for watching. If you liked this review on the Springfield Darkhorse, check out this video right here for Chieftain, this video right here for a Challenger, and this video right here because the algorithm thinks you're gonna like it.